忍び行かせたか。
Welcome back to the intrepid Bill Daly, former VP at Warner Brothers, the man who worked on everything from Harry Potter to Batman. How are you, Bill?
Okay. How are you?
Good.
It's a pretty wide gulf between Batman and Harry Potter.
It is, but both epic. I see something very interesting behind you. Would that be Mark Marshall's book by... Whoa, wait a minute. What?
I see Ethan Dettenmeier's book, and I
Yes.
see Mark Marshall's book.
Mark's is very interesting, actually. I mean, we could talk about mine if you'd like, but I'll save it for another time. I do like Mark's book. It's a very interesting, very candid look at his career.
Yeah.
Have you read the whole thing yet?
Yeah, well, I got an advanced
Oh,
copy
that's right.
as a
You
PDF.
wrote the forward.
Because I wrote one of the forwards. Yeah, one of them.
Forgot.
Sean Astin did one as well.
Yeah.
I'm
Well, you
sorry,
wrote the main
do
one,
have
of
my
course.
attention. I'm just checking a baseball score here because
Yeah, I am so into the conversation. Let me
it's
see
that
how the
time of year, you
Dodgers
know?
are doing.
No,
Hey,
Philadelphia.
oh, right.
How is Philadelphia doing? My son is going to Philadelphia on Saturday.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that, but since we're pressed for time, we're going to circle back to the issue at hand. Hey, we just lost Richard Chamberlain and Val Kilmer this week.
And Bruce Glover.
And Bruce Glover,
Bruce
who was a
good
friend of yours.
Yeah, I knew Bruce for 40 years. Richard Chamberlain I met a couple of times when I was at Lorimar. They were just starting to do Island Sun in Hawaii. Once it went into production, we never saw those guys again. Oh, well, I left. They were in production, and I moved over to Warner Brothers Pictures from Lorimar. Lorimar was part of Warner Communications at the time. And I made the move to the studio in Burbank because we were at MGM. And then, but I used to see a lot of Richard Chamberlain at the MGM lot until they went to Hawaii. Bruce, I met when I first left. Oh, I was about to leave ABC. That was in 1985. So literally 40 years I've known Bruce.
So let's take it one legend at a time. Let's start with Chamberlain. As a kid, we knew Chamberlain. I mean, the generation ahead of me knew him as Dr. Kilgare.
Yes, but I did.
And a lot of women loved him from the Thornbirds, which I'd never seen. But for me, he was always the Three Musketeers and Shogun.
Those for me too.
The castle alarm. Lord Ishida knows.
Look at him. As if he had all the time in the world.
So Dr. Kildare, I knew that when I was a kid. I was still in grade school when that was on the air. I remember my mother picked up at the grocery store. They were doing these promotional things. Well, I had a Dr. Kildare pen, a lead pen that you would with wood, made out of wood.
Yeah.
I had that when I was in, I think, third grade or maybe second grade or something like that. When I was at ABC, also, we did the Thornbirds. I didn't work on it. Judy, the woman in the office next to me, did that one. I was doing the Winds of War at the time
Oh,
as the Thornbirds.
Herman Woke.
Yes. So
I want to do a Winds of War episode, but back to Chamberlain. Did you meet him?
not then. I met him doing Island Sun
How was he?
Lorimar. He was really nice. Really nice. His partner at the time, he hadn't come out yet, but we all knew, and his partner was one of the producers on it. Both of them were just couldn't have been nicer, and they really knew what they were doing. He was a seasoned pro. He really knew what he was doing, and and how to do a TV show. So he was very delightful to work with. Ironically, or not ironically, but interestingly, his partner looked almost just like him.
You said that. I remember
And
you
I
telling me
couldn't,
that.
I couldn't help but think, is this guy narcissistic, or I mean, what's the deal? But you never got that sense when you're in a room with him or anything. He was just
Right.
He
Didn't come across that way.
No,
Yeah.
and he was really, really nice. But the Three Musketeers and Four Musketeers, I was in college when they came out.
The Three Musketeers, the most read book in the world after the Bible. Filmed with a cast that dazzles the screen with their brilliant performances.
There are 6 of them, and we are only 3.
No. 4.
What is your name, youngster?
D'Artagnan.
Athos? Porthos, Aramis, and D'Artagnan. Forward!
One for all for one. The action.
You want to sleep with me? You need a good cuddle. Chase the fights away.
The romance.
Oh, Monsieur D'Artagnan. Oh.
The excitement. The suspense. The Three Musketeers, a truly great film adventure.
Your Majesty refers to God?
I refer to Cardinal Richelieu, which is not quite the same thing. Ah, Cardinal.
Up, Cardinal. Down, Queen.
The spectacle. The splendor. The thrills. The genius of Alexander Dumas, the brilliance of Richard Lester. One great screen entertainment. The Three Musketeers. One mighty cast, a dazzling motion picture. Oliver Reed, Raquel Welch, Richard Chamberlain, Michael York, Frank Finlay, Christopher Lee, Geraldine Chaplin, Jean-Pierre Cassel, Simon Ward, Faye Dunaway, and Charlton Heston in The Three Musketeers.
Little mustache with a little thing underneath at the time.
Sean and I were just looking at clips of that because I loved those movies. I thought the
Yeah.
production value in those movies was unmatched. The streets with all the activity and the activity that Richard Lester put in there that the average director wouldn't have thought to put in there, like the moving trees and horticulture and all.
Right.
Anyway, we were looking at the clip. One clip is when D'Artagnan decides to jump out the window to duel the guy, but actually lands on the window washing equipment, so goes up.
Yeah.
Which was pretty clever, I thought. But the way those guys spoke in that movie, like, well, you know, I'm only a musketeer temporarily until I get accepted into the priesthood. The dialogue, the voice and diction was incredible. It was a great movie too.
Oh yeah.
So that was actually one of those hallmark things. Yeah, you worked with Lester too, didn't you? Work with him on?
Yes,
Yeah.
Superman 2. But Richard's originally from Philadelphia. He's an American. You listen to him speak, and he has a British accent because he's been living there since the early 60s. But one of the things that really struck me in the Three and Four Musketeers, and that was sort of like the last Harry Potter. It was shot as to be one movie, and they had so much material there. And the same thing, and the same producers as Superman. Same deal with Superman 2. They had all this leftover stuff, and then so that they were able to go out and shoot more stuff and make a second movie.
Yeah. So what you're alluding to, for those listening, is the Salkinds actually shot enough for 2 films, which led to a SAG law that you can't cut it into 2 movies without the actor's approval or something to that effect.
And you have to
there's
pay
two
them for 2 movies. You can't.
And
just
you
pay
should.
them for one.
And you should.
Yeah.
Well, there's 2 different stories on it. There's the Salkind story, which is, we had this extra footage, but it is extremely coherent to have all this extra footage that leads conveniently into another chapter.
Well, the thing
and then
is,
the actors say real quick that they thought they were shooting a masterpiece with all of it, and they were. I tend to believe the talent, but continue.
Well, if you look at the MGM Three Musketeers with Gene Kelly as D'Artagnan, and Van Heflin was one of them, and I can't remember who else from the MGM stable of actors was in it. Lana Turner was Milady de Winter, and it beautifully photographed. It was just stunningly beautiful. And if you look at that movie, just like in Robin Hood, you sort of get this sense that, oh my God, the early and then later medieval period or into the Renaissance period. Oh my God, it was just gorgeous and untouched and beautiful and all that.
Yeah.
And then you see the Three Musketeers and the Four Musketeers, and he brought a grittiness and a realism to that, where you can actually smell the horse manure in that movie. Do you know what I mean?
You can. And, it also had a sense of action realness to it, so to speak, where the fight scenes were kind of dirty, and there was no, once the swords came out, it got very, very uncanny. Like they did not.
It was no longer Olympic fencing. It was life or death, and
they would cheap shot, throw things, bash you with the chair, and I loved that because that seemed like a fight for your life. And actually, I think the fencing fight coordinator actually makes an appearance in the film as one of the assassins towards the end, but they also got hurt. Yes. They got hurt in the making of the film, but they got hurt in the movie, which I didn't see in a lot of movies prior. They were kind of unscathed oftentimes, but there's that scene where they have a bet where they're like, we're going to have breakfast on the top of the castle on top of the chalet.
Yes.
Seems a long way to go for breakfast. Think about it, Athos. Look, over there! Can you see? Someone's approaching the bastion! Fire! Hurry! I'll cover you. Quickly, quickly! Don't stop it, Planchet! Oh! All right. Why do we always have to attack uphill? I'm getting too old for this. I got something important to tell you. We have to speak up a bit.
You and you. Up there, yes. I see it. You. Get those things ready. You.
Last we got a chance to talk in peace.
Here we are, sir. Here's your wine now. Sorry, it's room temperature.
Well, come on, open it, Planchet. Damn that pot-bellied part of a landlord. This isn't champagne. This wine does not travel well.
You saw her with the Cardinal, and she's going to murder Buckingham?
If necessary. And knowing Buckingham, it probably will be. Here, give me some of that.
A moment, gentlemen! We're in the middle of our breakfast!
Aliens having no manners.
We can't allow Buckingham to be butchered.
Well, no, monsieur, he's on their side.
Precisely, and he's English.
No, he's a gallant gentleman, and he loves our queen. Well, I'm not going to sit by and allow him to be murdered by that...
She also has a death warrant signed against you and your Madame Bonacieux. You read this with your breakfast, and afterwards tuck it safely in your boot, eh, boy?
Fire! Wrong.
You know, it strikes me we will be better employed wringing Milady's pretty neck than shooting these poor devils of Protestants. I mean, what are we killing them for? Because they sing psalms in French and we sing them in Latin?
Oh, boss, had you no education? What do you think religious wars are all about?
Ah, very good, very good.
Here they come, gentlemen. Make your shots count, will you, please? That was fake.
Hey, well, Planchet, no, then. Think about it.
And they're running, and they're like getting shot at, and they're getting like there's grenades going off, and they're having a conversation about intrigue, palace intrigue, why they're doing. It really was a well thought out movie, I thought.
And and if you put the two movies together and had one really long movie, you would basically have the story of the MGM one, the whole story. It's sort of like Wicked now. We had part one. But that's only half the story, so the people who saw it on stage know what the whole story is. So they did part one and part two, where they released part one and part two, but it's really one continuously long story. Although the first one can really live on its own. You could end there, not see the second part, and you've seen a very good movie. Yes, I agree. Very, very good movie with a good ending. They managed to actually linchpin in a decent ending for what would be typically a launch point for a second. I guess Faye Dunaway's the only one left alive. Who would have thought? Is she the only one? I think so. Frank well, Finley's, Michael York is still with us. Michael York. And Michael York I knew at Lorimar. He was on the Falcon Crest, I believe. He was on one of our shows. I used to see him almost every day, and we would say hello to one another because I always had that recognizable face. I always had those John Davidson kind of looks, and everybody thought they knew me, but they didn't really, So we used to say hello and wave to each other, and it's like, but I never once went to lunch with him or anything or had a serious conversation. It was just we were those familiar strangers, I guess. Bill Daly remains the most important executive we've ever interviewed, who's always mistaken for someone lesser than who he is. But anyway, I loved York as a kid. I loved him in those movies. I loved him in Logan's Run. He just had a quality about him. I actually think the synergy of that Three Musketeers cast is probably unmatched in terms of four players. I mean, even Reed, who basically played himself, a notorious brawling drunk who built a bar to compete with Keith Moon. But he was one of the most entertaining people in those movies. Yes. Very. And you notice how he always threw his hat whenever they'd get into a scrape. He threw his hat into the middle of it, and then he would do all the all the fencing and everything, and then pick up his hat at the end. I did not know that the books by Dumas were actually based on a real D'Artagnan, and there was real life friction between the Musketeers, who were the King's Guards,
and the Cardinals guards. That was real. Sometimes, and they would brawl over who was more important, and they sometimes did actually start to sword fight each other. So that's what I couldn't really figure that out as a kid. Like, why are these guys, one king, one card, fighting? And then I realized
there's one more aspect to that. There was sort of a quasi civil war going on in France at the time.
That's true.
The battles that we're seeing at the beginning of the first one, they were the Catholics battling the Huguenots, who were the Protestants, who were perfectly content to live in France. But a lot of them then were driven away to England because England was a Protestant country.
Right.
So I have ancestors on my father's side, my father's father's side, that were Huguenots. So there's some French names. Lamont is one of them. That's a French name, but it's very common in Northern Ireland and in Scotland.
So there's a reference to that in the movie. There's several visual references, but there's a line where they talk about bringing Christian charity to the heathens of English on the shores of England or something because they're the Protestant. The humor in the movie is not just visual; it's very cerebral at times. If you can watch that movie 4 or 5 times and get something new out of it every time, including
there's even a line. I don't remember who has the line. One of the 3 Musketeers has a line about, "I don't know why we're fighting these people just because they want the Bible in English."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, interesting point. Interesting. And it's funny because there was a story we were watching today about Raquel Welch got her wrist hurt in a fight scene with Faye Dunaway. And my daughter is like, accidentally, of course. Because you can imagine those two on the same set. Like, who's the more important actress to the
But
to the story?
that was the first time I ever saw Raquel Welch, and she wasn't playing a sex pot. And she was so funny.
Yeah,
she had
was.
such a great sense of humor. And later she did Broadway and stuff. And I remember she came into ABC to promote some of that stuff. And she really was very sweet, always had a smile on her face.
Yeah.
You knew that you had a sense that she was up to something. There was something kind of impish about Raquel Welch,
Right.
Which I found really refreshing, and I just thought it was so cool. But the first time I'd seen that was in that movie,
The
3 Musketeers.
I mean,
Constance.
for me,
she played Constance.
Constance, yes. And there's a lot of jokes based on the name, right, throughout the movie. There's moments in there, like I remember as a kid not having seen before, like a fight on the ice. They'd done that, I'm sure, somewhere, but fighting with like lanterns, like they had to hold the lanterns so they could duel at night. Christopher Lee, too, by the way, is perfect with his subtle sense of humor as the villain throughout the entire. Him and Heston, where he's like, they're going to try to. We were watching that scene where they're trying to execute Lee, and they can't hit him. The rifleman kid, and he's like, they're reloading, and he's like, why bother? I may die of old age.
Yeah,
but the way it's like he's so villainous that everything out of his mouth just makes you crack up.
Yeah.
But
he's another person I met.
And
I met twice. I met him. I didn't work with him. He did come in and he did something for some voiceover for, I want to say Corpse Bride, but I'm not 100% sure. He did do something for us, but it was done in England. I have a book. It's up there.
Next to that legendary No Quarter Kill All Masters book on your
He wrote an autobiography called Tall, Dark, and Gruesome.
Yeah.
And I got him to sign it for me.
Oh, good.
Yes, it's up there on the shelf.
What did he say when he signed it?
I will leave it to you in my will. Well, he was surprised that I had it because it was only for sale in England. So he was surprised that I had it, and he asked me where I got it. And, today it would be an answer where somebody would say, well, of course. Today it would be Amazon, but at the time it was a place called bookpages.co.uk, and you could buy English books there.
I'm surprised it wasn't available worldwide. I mean, he was well known in America.
Well, it was an English publisher, and I'm sure he was, but I don't know what the deal is.
Richard Ashton worked with him, and he said he was taken aback because he saw Christopher Lee made a speech to the company at Pinewood for something. And so he said, it's our lot in life to do the occasional bad movie. but the trick is to not be bad in them.
Right.
And it's advice, obviously, that every actor, but particularly Ashton, still lives with. You do.
Did
the
he
best
think
you can.
he was making a bad movie at the time? Do you think? I mean, that's quite
I
a
think he
speech
was,
to make at the studio.
I think he was aware that he had been in a few, and I don't know
Yeah.
what the context of the
Right.
brought the speech about. Maybe somebody asked him about a Hammer film or something, and
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of these guys were realist. I mean, what's awesome about the psychology in my limited experience with British actors or European actors versus American is very different. Like a lot of British actors, Max von Sydow was not British, but I'll use him as an example. Milius would tell me that he would do Conan, and then when he'd wrap on Conan, like the following Monday, he would start a play. And then he'd do the play for 6 weeks, and then after that, he was doing a commercial back in his home in Sweden or Scandinavia. And then he'd come back and he had 2 movies to do back to, like, for them, it was always about working.
Yeah.
Like, it's about having your schedule full to be an actor, not be a star who's worried about all these perceptions, but be an actor. So I think at the end of the day, they realize a few things. Go ahead.
That's sort of the vaudeville ethic. You talk to anybody who there aren't that many people left, who had come through any aspect of the or any period of the vaudeville time.
Right.
The cat just jumped up on the table here. And they've always got, hey, so what do you got? What do you have after this? And they'll list out 6 things. Okay. 4 of them might be bullshit, but they will list out 6 things. Oh, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And that's just sort of the vaudeville mentality. And it's great to see that mentality was alive and well in Britain. If you talk to anybody on Broadway, they're always got something in the fire. They're looking forward to their next thing. They don't just sit. Very few people sit on one play and stay there.
But this cast, Three Musketeers, they seem like they had that jobber mentality if we're going to get.
Yeah.
But I had also heard from different people who've archived aspects of the film that what they all loved about doing it, particularly Heston, who's the American in the group, well, Dunaway, or actually Welsh too, I think is
Welsh too, yeah, and Chamberlain.
And Chamberlain. Wait a minute. Let's go. Forget I even decided to classify it by nationality.
Do you want to edit that part out?
I might have to cut that. Well, actually,
no, we can start over.
The audience is used to me looking stupid, so they're not going to be taken aback by anything. So, but it's one of those things.
I'm sorry. I forget what the point we were making. Can you start over?
Yeah. So Heston.
Yes.
One of the things Heston said he liked about it is he had a chance as a villain to do things he never got to do. Now, I don't know what those are watching the performance because it seemed kind of reserved, but who knows? And who knows what's taken out of the film.
But he was still menacing, even though he was low key. He was menacing.
He was.
Charlton Heston I worked with a couple times too. And I have a book on this side that he signed.
Whoa! So what did he say when he signed your book? I'm always curious.
Thank you. He thanked me for getting the book. He did a book signing. This book. Charlton Heston and I have encountered each other many times over the years, and he was at this book when I got this signed was at the Nixon Library. He was doing a book signing there because he was part of that whole Nixon crowd with conservative, whatever. So, and I used to belong to them, to the Nixon Library Association, and I'd get invited to all their events, and a lot of them I went to. I mean, they were fascinating things to go to, including book signings. I have a Bob Hope book up here that he signed there, too.
Wow.
Somewhere up here.
Well, I'm always curious what the author says when the book comes back to him for a signature,
he was there. They were selling the books and all, but he thanked me for getting the book.
Good class.
And then I reminded him that I was the unit manager on the. He came in and did the screen tests for.
Look at
all
that
the
signature.
Actresses on the Colbys when they were casting for the part that eventually became Barbara Stanwyck's. They did screen tests And I was the
Really?
unit manager doing the tests. Yeah, we did Elizabeth Ashley, we did Sarah York, and
Yeah.
ironically Faye Dunaway. And then Barbara Stanwyck. We never tested her, but I guess when she said she was interested, they just went ahead and hired her. But
You
one
don't,
of the
yeah,
other three,
I don't know that you test
and it wasn't
Stanwyck.
that, well, they weren't testing for, let me turn around here. They weren't testing for
What was
their
it,
ability
chemistry
to
reading?
act. It was chemistry, and that's why Charlton Heston came in and did the scenes with them, you know.
So,
And I'd seen him the night before that test. I saw him at the airport.
oh, really?
My in-laws were coming in from Hawaii, and he was on their flight, and I saw him walking down the long that long tunnel, as where you're waiting for flights to come in. And he came down ahead of them, no doubt. He was in first class, so he came down ahead of them in the tunnel. And I almost said something to him, but I thought, it's better if tomorrow I just say, I saw you at the
Yeah.
airport last night. Then I'm going to see you tomorrow, because I didn't want him to stay awake all night wondering what
Right.
that
Like,
meant.
who is Robert Wagner will see me tomorrow? John Davidson? Why is John Davidson? He's
Yeah.
going to call his agent. Why is John Davidson going to see me
Wait a
tomorrow?
minute. I thought I was testing women. Is
Yes,
he?
exactly. What exactly? Freddie Fields. Excuse me. Why is John Davidson at the airport with me? But what's funny is Richard Johnson, who was the star of The Haunting, did like 5 or 6 pictures with Heston. They were close friends and loved him.
Yeah.
Loved him. Told some very good stories about him as a person that sometimes gets lost in some of the political
Yeah.
traffic that surrounds him now. So I mean, I always try to look for what humanizes a person, and clearly, you look at Heston as the cardinal in Three Musketeers, and that's a good call. I think that ultimately played out to be a good call, even if he is in a way. I won't say he's upstaged by the other actors, but the other actors certainly match wits with him on screen.
Well, he's inhibited by his wardrobe too, as the cardinal,
True.
and he's playing a malevolent, archbishop who, well, he's a cardinal, so I mean, well, he will be an archbishop. He's a cardinal's going to be a bishop of some kind, but he's a malevolent cardinal who's in the
Right.
political game. Okay, so he's never going to show his cards. You never really know what the king is thinking.
No, you
in
don't.
that movie, except that you think he's a jackass, but you don't know what he's thinking really. Do you know?
Well, yes. I mean, he is aware, if I remember the movie right, he is aware his wife, who's played by Charlie Chaplin's daughter, Geraldine, is having an affair, right?
Yeah,
With Essex?
With Buckingham.
Buckingham. Yeah. Buckingham. Essex. I'm going into the Errol Flynn movie. Never mind. Forget it, folks. I'm sorry. It's been a while since I've seen the movie intact, but I would recommend the film, actually. I think it's really good. But yeah,
It's
Heston
coming
is
out on Blu-ray soon.
Oh, good.
It really
With
is.
what?
I saw through I think it's Kino Lorber, but it might be Criterion. I get emails telling me what's coming out. There is a Blu-ray version of that. It's out on DVD already, and it's available on Fandango at home, and probably Movies Anywhere. But there is a disc coming out.
I think Rory Kinnear was killed in the third one. Wasn't he killed in a horse riding accident? We lost him tragically early.
Yeah,
He's actually
I didn't know it was that movie, but it could be. I mean, it's Roy Kinnear, not Rory. Roy.
Well, Rory's
Kinnear.
his son, right?
Yeah. Roy Kinnear we see in the Beatles movies as well.
Yeah, and Willy Wonka. How was Richard Lester?
He was always nice. Well, he and I were both from Philadelphia, so
Does that count for something, Bill? You keep
It
going
does.
back to that.
It does. It does. Yeah.
Okay,
it does.
so obviously you liked him more than me, but continue.
Of course. Well,
Right.
he brought a better grade of soft pretzels to the meetings.
Yeah, smart man. He knows how to do it. But
I never really spent that much time with Richard Lester. I mean, we did the movies, but he would do his thing and go. It's like he didn't hang around with the guys and stuff like that.
I think he's underappreciated. I mean, he's appreciated by some, but not known by all. And if you look at a
he's
movie
great.
like
There's only
look at
one.
Robin
I'm sorry.
and Marion.
Robin and Marion, he did.
Beautiful movie.
He did a movie called Cuba that wasn't well received.
Right.
It was Sean Connery and Brooke Adams and
Yeah.
others. but it's actually a pretty good movie. I saw it. I was stuck at an airport and I saw it back in the 80s sometime. And I thought, oh, well, okay, this movie's better than anybody gave it credit for. I think Petulia is kind of boring,
I haven't
personally.
seen it. That's one I
That
haven't
was one
seen
he
yet.
did in the 60s. Beautifully photographed and everything, but I just, Julie Christie, I believe, is in it. Just wasn't my cup of tea. Although, now I could go back now. I mean, I saw it when I was a teenager. I could go back now and see it and probably think it was pretty good. But Richard Lester, I always thought did better work. And,
Yeah.
okay, and I'm about to commit blasphemy. I believe the Richard Lester version of Superman 2 is better than the Donner version.
Alert.
What makes it better in your mind?
It doesn't get hung up on stuff. The Donner version gets hung up on things, and I think Richard Lester is more economical about telling the story.
I agree with that. I mean, we're both Donner fans. We both like Donner as both a person and a director, having been at Warner Brothers with us. We're not saying anything in a personal context, but I can see that, and I can see where Lester was like a point A, point B, point C, point D guy. Like, let's just get there. I mean, even in Three Musketeers, the temptation would be to like get lost in all those streets and all those melodramas between the characters, and he still tries to kind of get it there as quick as possible to where it needs to go, which is its ultimate showdown.
And he doesn't get hung up on the wardrobe. Can you imagine today? Can you imagine Baz Luhrmann doing the Three Musketeers?
Forget it. Forget it.
I mean, seriously.
But I mean, I love the wardrobe in the movie, and I think it, like, you kind of get lost in it. Like, the actors, they actually look like they wore those clothes every day. Like, it looked like the hats in particular, with the exception of Aramis, which is the Chamberlain character, because he's kind of a very, refined guy. But the other guy, Porthos, and some of these guys who were the drunks, man, they look like they lived in their shit.
Well, Aramis, I haven't read the book, but it just seems to me from watching that movie that Aramis obviously came from a family that was well-to-do, an aristocratic family. And what would happen is the eldest son would inherit the estate and the fortune. The second son would go into the military, and the third son would go into the priesthood. So here you have Aramis. He's in the military, but he's headed to the priesthood.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get a sense that that he was an aristocrat, and it's supported by his dialogue, and he's reading poetry and stuff all the time. He supports that. Richard Chamberlain does a really, really good job of selling that.
He does, and I also love the fact that when D'Artagnan gets his lieutenancy at the end, he's trying to pawn it off on the others, and nobody wants a piece of it. It's like they're all like, oh, forget it. That's I don't want the responsibility of having any kind of authority, and they all know themselves too well. I mean, there's even a tennis scene, or is it squash? What is it?
There's yeah. It's I think it probably an early representation of tennis. There was a similar tennis, I think, dates back to the Tudor era. and it was played in a similar sort of like an indoor hall sort of thing, and perhaps they were bouncing the ball off of walls and stuff like that in earlier incarnations of it. But yeah, that's a early Renaissance tennis match, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Now who's the king? It's Louis which? It's not the 16th. Louis the 14th, perhaps?
Yeah, I'm
I
not
don't
sure
know
what
that
his
it would
number
be
designation is.
it would be 1500s, I think. France.
Is it 16?
Well, with no,
Is it
I
15,
don't,
16?
I don't know, you know,
It's tough to know.
I don't know. But whenever the Huguenot thing was going on, and I would think that that would coincide with the Tudor era,
Maybe.
which the Tudor era really ends in 1605, something like that.
Now, Mike Newell, Harry Potter,
Yeah.
directed Chamberlain in The Man in the Iron Mask for television. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
Which had Ralph Richardson, The Prisoner, McGugan,
Yeah.
all those great
Yeah.
cast, Ian Holm. It doesn't have sort of the depth of the Three Musketeers, but he did seem to strive for a similar feel, and I think that's
But it was
based on the
TV.
third D'Artagnan book. Yeah,
I'm sorry, it's a
Horrifying.
TV movie, so they spent less money on the sets, less money on, and
Mhm.
everything was move, 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 move. We need to fit this into a 90-minute segment, or it's 90 minutes of film and 30 minutes of commercials cut into it.
and it has almost like that Blackadder feel of like when they're riding through the countryside, the stuntmen are kind of, and then when they gallop to a halt, it's Patrick McGugan.
Yes,
You're like-
yes.
It's like, and it's where I think the Musketeers, I never was taken out of that movie. Now I have to look at it more closely perhaps, but I was never taken out of the movie. The stunt players, I always felt like seamlessly blended with the acting.
Yeah.
You know, in a really good way. But those movies, man, I'll tell you, it's there's lots to take in there, and Chamberlain was a big part of it. I think he's going to be very much missed. But when you did Island Sun,
Right.
medical drama,
Yes, I know. He knew doctors. I mean, that was my thing.
Yeah.
When at the time was this guy knows doctors. This guy, you know, obviously is you know, is in familiar territory, and he could sell it. And I'm sure that was the pitch. I was never there for the pitch. I was a production auditor at the time, so I was invited into those production meetings and stuff.
see, I think the pitch was Hawaii, and then you know doctors.
Well, but he was living in Hawaii.
Was he
I'm
before
sure-
that?
Yeah. So that was, I had asked the question, not of him. I asked, Hawaii, is it? And they, oh yeah, well, he lives there. And it's like, okay, he doesn't have to commute. That's great. You know, great
Good
for him.
call. Good call. Yeah.
You know?
And I mean, Entertainment Tonight focused a little bit on Island Sun when they did. Was looking at all the tributes. CBS may have been like the home of the Thornbirds. I only say that because that's all they focused on.
No, ABC was Thornbirds.
Okay. So for whatever reason, they were like really taken away with the Thornbirds, which I never saw, but Entertainment Tonight and
It
some of these
was,
other.
the Thornbirds was huge in the ratings.
Yeah, I know,
Huge.
but
And everybody loved Rachel Ward. They already knew who she was because of
mhm.
what did she do before that? I know or maybe that was the first thing she had done. Maybe that was the first thing she was known for in the US, because I just absolutely adore her in Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid. But Rachel Ward
Yeah, funny
got
movie.
got a lot of notice, and and Gene Simmons was in that too.
Yeah.
See, I didn't work
Yeah.
on it, so I'm aware of it and I've seen it. But Judy could, you know, if I knew we were going to talk about this, I would have called Judy and said, Judy, what do you have to say about the Thornbirds? Oh my God, they kept me up late every night. That's what it would be. It's saying that was my experience on the Winds of War. I mean, I was up late every night trying to get that movie done.
Yeah. I didn't see the Thornbirds, but of course, like I loved it when some of these retrospectives focused on Shogun and because that was some great, great entertainment. I mean,
bought my
Shogun was
fir-
something you religiously wanted to get back to each night.
Yeah. Well, I bought my first color TV because of Shogun.
Did you?
The first night that it aired, it was a big deal even for us. It was on NBC, but it was a big deal even for us. And I was working at ABC, and I was living in a small apartment in Venice, and TV was my, you know, I was about to say 9 to 5. It was really my like 8 to 8 job, you know, my life
Yeah,
was
yeah.
television. So I didn't want a big TV set that would be the focal point of my small apartment. So at the time I had a small 10-inch black and white TV, and if I wanted to watch TV, I would watch that. If I was home on Friday nights, I'd be watching the Rockford Files.
Makes
Okay.
sense. Makes sense, given the time period
And
we're
then
discussing.
I was invited to a watch party of the first episode of Shogun, and it was on at a friend's place in Santa Monica, and he had a color TV, and I just was blown away by this show. So I don't think I think they had dark nights in between the nights it ran. I don't think it ran Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I think it ran like Monday, Wednesday, that sort of thing. So I don't remember offhand, but I don't think it was always consecutive nights. So I asked Steve, my friend, so you having people over again? He goes, "Oh no, I have to work. I have this or that, and I'm like, "Oh my God, where am I gonna go see this? I should have gone to work. I should have just gone into the studio. But I went to a J.C. Penney's in Fox Hills Mall, and I bought a.
Was that where they shot Back to the Future? Were you at that mall?
Oh no, that mall was in Torrance. But I looked at Consumer Reports, and the color TV. I bought a 13-inch. I wanted still wanted to stay small. I bought a 13-inch J.C. Penney TV, which was really made by General Electric, but it had a better warranty because it was J.C. Penney. So I went and I bought that.
And
plunked down the credit card, took it home, got the rabbit ears and everything up, and was able to watch the rest of Shogun at home in my
mission
place.
accomplished, buddy. It's I remember when we were kids. See, I didn't see it in its first run. I saw it in its second, but I remember it in its first run because everyone was talking on the playground the next day of episode 1 that a dude gets his head cut off.
Oh, yes.
Odore! Remono! Patros et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Muraji, 家来殿のところへ連れて行ってやれ。はい。
That was a huge deal. That was a huge deal. So everyone was like, "What?" And it was one of those things that everyone was talking about, and I remember my grandmother being like, "Well, they recap it every night, but they don't recap that. They didn't show that again." But I remember thinking, like, "Wow!" I'm finally in the first run. I got to see it on Friday night because I could stay up late enough to see it. I was very young, but then when it came back around, I was like, "This is incredible. The whole thing is incredible. Like the blockade running, the intrigue. It's all really well."
But anybody getting their head cut off. I remember as a kid,
it stunned people.
I was probably in fifth grade.
People.
I think I was probably in 5th grade, and we used to go to the movies every weekend when I was a kid. I still have the movie going habit. And we saw Steve Reeves, the son or the slave, son of Spartacus. Okay. And somebody gets their head cut off in that movie. And we went back. We would go back to see the movie, to watch the guy in the battle get his head cut off. And then you see a couple of people get their heads cut off in The Wind and the Lion, Milius's movie.
Yeah, you do. I mean, the staging is a little bit different because in Shogun, it's like it happens in the midst of a conversation, and it's a little bit more jarring. In some of these other, when there's a military layout, you can expect.
Yeah.
But man, I'll tell you, that was the one thing on the playground. It was like, you're never gonna believe it, man. This dude gets his head cut off, and we were like, what? Anyway,
now back to the Three Musketeers.
Yes,
I worked with Frank Finlay too.
Oh, loved him. One of my favorite Marleys, opposite George C. Scott and Scrooge. Yeah. So.
Oh yeah.
So Finlay was he's also great in The Wild Geese as the minister who confronts him on the airstrip.
Yeah.
Mikey, what's going on? What's going on? Get up! Get up! Get up! and children, ready, waiting for the slaughter. Josh, sir, what's all the shooting?
Oh, nothing, sir. Just a pig.
Father Gagan. Good God. I thought you were dead. Years ago.
Looking at you and your guns, I am.
We need your help, Father.
To go and kill more of your brothers.
I hope not. You haven't changed a bit, but it's nice to see you.
I despise the sight of you. I want you out of my village.
Well, let's talk about it up here, shall we?
But so, how was Frank Finley?
No, he was really nice. He was very polite.
Yeah.
I met him. God, I was 14. He was in the Molly Maguires with Richard Harris and Sean Connery, and look at this guy. Oh, look at this guy. Oh.
Somebody else wants to. Somebody else has a few thoughts on Frank Finley.
Anthony Zerbe was in that. Samantha Agar. But yeah, Frank Finley was one of the members of the Molly Maguires. You going to sit on my lap there, buddy?
Yeah, Frank Finley was pretty exceptional as well, and he's really good as Porthos is really who he plays, right? Kind of like the fashionable, but yet not so smart.
Keep them all.
We reached out to him for a movie, but I think he was rep by Ken McCready at the time, but he was kind of in the twilight of his career. He'd done a Sherlock Holmes for Granada, and that was kind of where I think he was content to let it go. You never know what the physical outlooks of some of these guys are when they're in their twilight, but he's really good in it. I mean, there's a lot of people that appear in this too from time to time that remind you. I mean, a lot of the Wild Geese cast actually pops in and out of the Three Musketeers.
Well, you have
movies.
Simon Ward played
who I liked a lot, Zulu Dawn.
Well, he also played young Winston. You ever see that about Winston Churchill?
I did see that.
I mean, great piece of casting, Simon Ward, for that movie.
Yeah, he's still with us, I think.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
And he's what's it? Who's the treacherous English bastard and all this? What's it? Not. I keep wanting to go back to the Errol Flynn.
Yeah, I know who you mean. Yeah,
Buckingham. You called it.
No, Buckingham. Well, Buckingham.
He's Buckingham, right?
He plays Buckingham. But he wasn't. He was the Queen's lover. He wasn't. He wasn't like out to get her.
Okay, so for those
in any other way,
that's very treacherous.
Yeah,
I guess. And doesn't the Cardinal he realizes all that's going on, right? And he's trying to play the.
He wants to discredit the Queen.
Yeah.
I don't remember why. I don't remember what that was all about. I guess to solidify his power. I mean, the churchmen are always trying to get people under their thumb. Still today.
Yeah, to this day, I agree with you. Have you
What
seen
does this guy
Conclave?
think? I loved Conclave. I saw
That was really well done too.
at least 4 times in the cinema.
Really?
My twin brother and I were altar boys, so I was having flashbacks. But we never had bad experience with any priests. But it was the Latin came back to me right away. Not the Italian.
Mm-hmm.
I don't speak Italian, but Latin. We were pre-Vatican II altar boys, so we did the Mass in Latin, and Vatican II happened while we were working as altar boys. So we were there for the transition from Latin to English. English is easier to remember.
Yeah. Another exceptional cast.
Oh, I loved it. I voted for the cast for the SAG Awards, best overall cast.
Well, unfortunately, we can't get into that. I wanted to get into a bunch of things today, but I've got some surprises I've got to handle.
I voted for Coleman Domingo, though.
As you should have. I think brilliant. Brilliant.
Well, he also went to my school, Temple University.
Oh, there we go. So again, if you're from Temple or
Sing Sing is a fabulous movie, though. I mean, it really is a fabulous movie. And
one of the best I've seen.
They had this really unique company structure for how they financed it.
Really?
Everybody got paid the same amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have a friend who's a journalist. He does a lot of trade magazines and fan magazines and stuff. He did the notes for them for their publicity of their press kit and all that kind of stuff. He got the same pay that Coleman Domingo got. They just
Good.
split everything evenly, so everybody owned a piece of the movie. If you signed on to that movie, you owned a piece of it. So
I'd love to see that paperwork.
so Matt was telling me, he was saying, "Wow, this was so really cool," and because I told him I had gone to see a screening of it. They Screen Actors Guild sponsored a screening at the Grove, so I called a friend of mine who's also part of the alumni, and we went together, and then we ran into an old friend of mine. It was quite a nice day, but they talked about having this unique structure, but they didn't get into a whole lot of detail. And then I was talking to Matt, and he was telling me that, oh yeah, and they had this this whole thing, the way that it all worked, that everybody had a piece of it. And I said, yeah, they touched on that in the Q&A. And he said, really? Oh, good. I'm glad they talked about that, because maybe other people will make note of it and do the same thing. And he said, it's the most amazing thing, because, I'm sitting at home and I'm working on the next project here, and I get this check in the mail.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, on a single assignment, I've never gotten paid this much. And the checks keep coming.
I love that idea. I love that idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's a good way to do it. I would love to look at the intricacies of the overall deal too. So maybe we do that at some point. But getting back in closing to our boy Richard Chamberlain, I do want to also talk about Glover at some point when we have more time, because he was a good friend of yours.
Yes. I knew Bruce for 40 years.
Yeah, and to give him the respect he deserves, it's going to need its own show. But in regards to Chamberlain, Island Son, Aramis, Pilot Major Blackthorn, Dr. Kildare. And you know what we didn't talk about is his moments where he was able to throw away or throw aside the leading man persona and be like an absolute ass, like in Towering Inferno.
Yes.
Where he kicks people off the chair of death.
Yep.
And he's like,
The women are gone. We are going next.
You've all got numbers. And you're gonna take your turn. And if it's any consolation, I'm going to be the last one out of here, along with my son-in-law.
Robert? It's out of control. And it's coming your way. You got about 15 minutes. Now, they want to try something. They want to blow those water tanks 2 floors above you. They think it might kill the fire.
How are they going to get the explosives up here?
Oh, they'll find some dumb son of a bitch to bring it up.
Hang on, I'll tell him.
I want to try to put out the fire by blowing up the water tanks above us. It can mean a lot of water and steel and concrete, but if they don't try it, we're all going to burn. The fire's out of control below us. I figure we got maybe 15 minutes. This way, some of us might survive. We got no options.
Come on, let's go. Get that line. Get off! Hold the bastard! Get off this line! Let go of me! Get off the line! It's not gonna work! Oh! It won't hold everybody!
after he's like shortchanged all the contractors
After
and the
he's
building's
one
on
of the
fire, and he's
people
like pulling
responsible.
I
And he's
know.
one of the people responsible for the fire because
Yeah.
they didn't go to code. He saved money or pocketed money,
Yeah.
and they didn't adhere to code with the fire sprinklers and all that
Right.
stuff. Yeah.
And he like confronts, or William Holden confronts him, and he's like, were you talking to me when we were $2 million over budget about what sort of gauge the electrical wire would be on the 26th floor? No, you weren't. It was me who saved. And then of course the whole thing, it's just great that he was able to do that, and he seemed to embrace it. I mean, in The Swarm too, he plays, a lesser, like, unlikable kind of type, but in Towering
Who else
Inferno,
was in
man,
that?
he's great. Towering
Who else
Inferno or
was
The
in
Swarm?
The Swarm.
Well, Michael Caine is the star. Richard Widmark is your prototype general character, and then popping in and out is everyone from Henry Fonda to
That's why he did that role then, because he wanted to work with those people. So he was willing to be an ass. And then same thing with Towering Inferno. I mean, how many chances you get to work with Paul Newman and Steve McQueen?
None.
Okay.
So
He'd already
you're
worked with Faye Dunaway and William Holden and Fred Astaire, in the same movie. How many chances in your life are you going to share your name on a movie poster with all those people?
Yeah, and I think he probably enjoyed the experience. It was a chance to change gears.
Oh yeah.
And of course he gets to kick Robert Vaughn out a window. So, for those of us, there's a lot of Magnificent Seven veterans in Towering Inferno if you haven't seen it recently. But one of the ones who meets a grisly death is Robert Vaughn. Sorry, spoiler alert if you haven't seen a movie that's 50 years old. But fun stuff, man. Fun stuff. He left us some great work, and that's what we should do today or soon in his honor, is revisit some of these classics and watch a master deliver a part.
Now, is he mentioned in Mark Marshall's book?
I don't know. Did Mark work with him?
I don't know. I'm just wondering. How about this masterpiece of a book here? Is Richard Chamberlain figure into that one?
I'll tell you something. Now, that masterpiece you're pointing to is, of course, the limited release of No Quarter Kill All Masters.
Yes.
I will say Chamberlain is probably not a direct influence on the book, but Three Musketeers undoubtedly, subconsciously, probably is.
Ah, okay.
The layers and the detail in Three Musketeers stuck with me. And I think when I was trying to build like the Port Royal or the world on the ship, the Avenger, I definitely tried to get detail into the lifestyle and the concept of the book itself. So yes, I do like your segue into it. Thank you. You're a real friend.
And for Mark, I can only say Richard Chamberlain would have been in it.
Yes.
If he'd accepted that role that you sent him. I'm making it up.
Yeah. Well, no, but there probably is a Mark Marshall. Well, there probably is a Mark Marshall Chamberlain connection somewhere. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is Mike Newell, Man in the Iron Mask to Harry Potter, but Mike Newell didn't direct the Harry Potter that Marshall was the supervisor on.
Right.
So that's not the connection you'd want. But undoubtedly through Spielberg, I would think, is the connection to Chamberlain somewhere.
I would imagine the degrees of Kevin Bacon works for Mark Marshall too. The degrees of Mark Marshall.
Yeah. And it is intriguing to think about. It is intriguing.
Yeah.
I mean, the connection right now is you. You're the connection between Mark Marshall and Chamberlain, but Island Sun. Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
But there's probably one that people might know a little bit better. We just can't think of it now. It's probably through Three Musketeers. Yeah.
Christopher Lee was one of the few people in Britain who did not do a Harry Potter.
That's right. He didn't, did he?
No. He was down in New Zealand doing Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which Ian always preferred.
Did he?
Oh God, yes. And he was just a little kid. And he just loved watching those battles. When I got the first DVD, he would just go to the battles, just watch the battles. And then I got the second DVD, he would do the same thing. When I got the third DVD, he's fast forwarded all the way to the end where they throw the ring into the volcano. And then he never watched that DVD again. Now, he may have seen the show on HBO or places like that, but he never went back to the DVD after he got that closure on The Ring.
Well, there you go. Case closed. That's the roundabout connection we could use, which is Christopher Lee, Lord of the Rings, back through Three Musketeers, back to Mark Marshall in Harry Potter, right? Because the Sean Astin connection, Goonies.
Yeah, yeah.
Since Sean Astin wrote the other forwards, see, Mark got these really, really good personalities to write forwards. Bill Daly, Sean Astin, he really did that. That was smart because you guys could really give some insight to the book and the misadventures in the book. Good job.
Let me put the cat down. I had
Wait, stay right there. I just wanted to see that other book to the left of Mark's. Oh yeah, okay, go ahead.
I had a bit of a problem writing his forward because
Did you?
like I started out, I just found some notes. I drafted some notes for
It's
myself.
it's a tough thing to do. It's a big responsibility.
And in my notes, it's like, oh yeah, okay, that's why I did that. I did this whole thing where I sort of did the evolution of the post-production supervisor, because that position
Right.
never really existed until after I was at Warner Brothers. And
Got it.
the first time I encountered somebody doing that was the John Hughes movie. But we thought
We
it was
won't get
like
into him.
we thought it was a tremendously good idea to have a post-production supervisor, because what was happening was that my assistant and I at the time were the de facto post supervisors on a whole bunch of movies,
Mhm.
and a position that we should not have been placed into because we were basically auditors. So now I'm having to set up payroll and stuff and hire people. When there should be somebody, and I'm not part of that. I'm not part of that. I'm part of production, but I'm not part of that
Right.
production management. That part of production management, and so it gets approved. If we're doing it, it gets approved because there's nobody there to say you can't spend the money. But it was very helpful for post supervisors to come in. And I did this whole thing, the evolution of them, and the Fred Talmadge of it all, which is not a negative thing, and the Mark Solomon of it all, and this and that, and everything. And I thought, this is not what the book is about. The book is not about. It's about Mark and his stuff. So my forward there, I mean, I think it was like 4 to 6 pages. And now it's a page and a half. Now it's a page and a half, or it's 2 sides of a page and a half. So it's 2
You had to edit yourself?
I did, and when you go read it, I do talk about some stuff, and then I go, well, this is not a treatise on this. This is the story about one person's journey through Hollywood, or whatever it is I wrote. It's up there. I could go pull it down and look at it, but I don't know. So it took me a long time. I had to apologize to him because I wanted to do him justice, but I didn't want to overshadow him.
He's glad you did it. So if it
Well,
takes
I'm
a little
glad I did
extra
it, too.
I think it's a good call. And if it takes a little extra time to get it right, well, by all means, go after it. Hey, I got to bounce to the next emergency,
Yes.
but I would like to do this again as soon as you can do it to talk more about Glover and
Yes.
some of these other personalities we lost. Bill Daly, last word goes to you real quick.
I don't have anything to say about Kilmer because I never met him. We did 5 or 6 movies with him during my tenure, but I was never allowed near the Batman stage.
I want to get into those stories next time because I've got a few from Building 81, but
but I never I may have encountered him, but I've never met him, never spoke with him or anything like that. But he did some good work.
Yeah, he did. So rest in peace, Kilmer. Rest in peace, Glover. Rest in peace, Chamberlain.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Very much missed. All right. For the intrepid Bill Daly, former Warner Brothers VP turned producer, I'm Ethan Dettenmaier. Thank you for joining us.
Hi there, everybody. Voice actor Roger Craig Smith here to talk to you about NMOSD. It can paralyze you, it can blind you, it can even kill you in a matter of minutes, but we are very close to a cure. And with that cure could come a cure for cancer. So please go to the Guthrie Jackson Foundation and donate today. Appreciate it.